Welcome to the second episode of Tales from the Shadows. I'm Bill Robertson, your host, and tonight I'm going to be talking about the Ghosts video that I produced a while back that actually I produced in conjunction with my book, Ghosts Revisited. And what I actually did in Ghosts the DVD was to create a video book, because the stories in here are repeated verbatim, word for word, and also they're accompanied by many spooky sound effects, many spooky eye-popping visuals, everything to make the story even scarier than they were in my book. And I got the idea for doing this actually from creating audiobooks. And a few years ago I did this audiobook called Until Death Do 'Em Part. And it was so much fun going into the studio and having my buddies come in. We had kind of like a party in the studio and everybody did their bits. Different people read poems. We added all these weird sound effects and laughing and giggling and all kind of fun stuff we did. And that was so much fun, I thought, well, why not do the video book next? And that's where Ghosts, the video book, came from. And the person who was most responsible for creating this great product was a man by the name of Mark Paulonia. And he's the tech guy who works over at Mansfield University. And I met him over there when I was on one of the TV programs sponsored by the university itself. And he was behind the camera, and then we got to talking, and he told me that not only does he like to do stuff for Mansfield, but he also likes to do his own horror movies. And this is one of the ones he did called Monster Movie. And it's all shot locally here in northwestern Pennsylvania and includes a lot of his friends who are also local actors. And it's really a good medium for, promoting the area and also trying to scare people with some of the cool stuff he does. And another one of his movies is called Muckman. And this one was kind of tongue-in-cheek sort of thing, kind of humorous. But the monster movie is really scary. And he keeps asking me to be in his movies, but I don't know. I'd probably be more afraid than having to go out in the woods and run around, and I don't know if it'd be worth it or not. So far I said, no, I don't think I will. But anyway, I convinced him to help me on my video book, and I sent him all the different stories that I wanted to include, and then he read them, right from the page. And then, as I mentioned before, he added in eye-popping visuals and spooky sound effects, screams, wails, all kind of cool stuff. And also, I sent him a lot of photographs of the various sites so that he was able to put in, the places themselves. And also, he added his own visuals in there too to make it even scarier. So, what we did then was to, again, take Ghosts Revisited, an actual paperback, and turn it into a video book, Ghosts. And now I'd like to actually play this for you, and you'll be able to see the whole thing. It's sort of my gift to you for Halloween, and I hope you enjoy what you see.
The Bogart House was built in Ridgeway, Pennsylvania in 1879 and served as a hotel until 1990, when it was gutted by fire on Super Bowl Sunday. It was named after one of its original owners, P.F. Bogart. The hotel was famous for its lavish barroom filled with ornate, turn-of-the-century furnishings. In its heyday, it contained a restaurant, 31 rooms, and 11 apartments. What isn't listed in its history is the number of lodgers who disappeared due to mysterious circumstances. Located at 3830 McMahon Road on a desolate hilltop near the village of Hinsdale, New York, the Dandy House is over 100 years old and inhabited by age-old spirits. Built near an Indian burial ground just 200 feet from the home, blood has been seen gushing from the earth there. This cemetery reputedly inters 1,100 Senecas who were killed by their own tribe for committing evil. Often, the dandies heard a chorus of disembodied voices echoing from the nearby woods as if performing a cleansing ritual. Equally disturbing, the family watched smoky air in the kitchen transform into a huge gray wolf. When the beast leaped straight through a wooden door, the Iroquois word for leave was plainly heard. Then, shadow people were seen leering in the window. After the dandies went outside to investigate, the same faces were looking out at them from the living room as lights flashed on and off. Other ghosts were present as well. A young, dark-haired lady was seen walking by the pond. Could she have been the woman hung from a tree out front? Then, apparitions in long gowns began appearing with startling frequency both in and out of the house. They well could have been the victims of a deranged innkeeper who murdered travelers while the dwelling served as a way station for stagecoaches. From the time-filled dandy, his wife Clara, and their 3 children moved into the house in July of 1973, they were beset by dark forces. Lights turned on and off by themselves. The kitchen stove went haywire while cooking dinner. Rooms got icy cold in August, and pounding and dragging noises echoed from the attic. One day they heard the slamming of a window and smashing glass. When they scrambled to look in the bedroom from which the noise issued, all the windows were in place. Then the haunting grew violent. After a lamp flew across the room at one of the daughters, the death card, the Ace of Spades, was found on the floor in her room. A few days later, 2 of the children awoke with burn marks covering their bodies. This prompted the family to enlist Father Alphonsus Treble of St. Bonaventure to perform an exorcism on April 13, 1975. As he conducted his ceremony, moans and wails echoed through the house until all grew deathly still. 3 months later, though, the evil forces renewed their attacks. The dandies were eventually forced to move. Alton hugs the shore of the Clarion River in Elk County, Pennsylvania. In 1908, a plague swept through the village, decimating its baby population. The children were buried across the river on an eerie hillside. Night photos clearly capture their ghosts. Neighbor kids leave toys for the phantom babies to play with. And then there's the dead caretaker who follows you back to your car. The ghost of Ralph Crossmeyer haunts the old jail museum operated by the McKean County Historical Society in Smethport, Pennsylvania. Crossmeyer was tried and convicted of bludgeoning his mother to death with a stout piece of wood. After a death machine was erected in front of his basement cell, he was hung on December 14, 1893. Many, including the sheriff, thought Crossmeyer was innocent. The evidence against him was circumstantial. There were no witnesses, and he was working in Mount Jewett at the time. According to the museum manager, the ghost of Ralph Crossmeyer is more of a practical joker than a malicious spirit. One morning, her car keys disappeared from the middle of her desk, and she tore the place apart looking for them. She found the keys dangling from a lamp near the front entrance after Ralph returned them at closing time. She also remembered Ralph taking a photo of the 1930 Port Allegheny baseball team from a locked display case. The picture showed up the next day, perched atop the fire alarm system in the basement. In 1862, Fallbrook was a thriving coal town of 14,000 residents. Located in the heart of Tioga County, Pennsylvania, it was connected by railroad to Corning, New York, where its coal was shipped to the Erie Canal. The town boasted a hotel and numerous blacksmith shops and boarding homes. It was also the victim of a smallpox outbreak in the winter of 1871 that claimed the lives of many children. Fires were a problem too. In May of 1872, a wildfire swept through the surrounding woods and would have engulfed the village if the entire population hadn't pitched in to fight it. Another fire burnt down the hotel in 1899, the year Fallbrook was abandoned after the mines had run dry. All that exists of Fallbrook today are a few foundations and a field of blighted tombstones encompassed by thick trees. Caskets are rising in the graveyard and form mounds close to the earth's surface. Many of the stones are broken and include engravings of clasped hands, ascending doves, and fingers pointing skyward. Considering the deplorable condition of the site, it's no wonder ghost stories have sprung from the surrounding region. It's true, though, that visitors have seen dark figures and have felt like they were being watched. A woman's agonizing scream has also been heard bursting from the woods, and a team of investigators captured an EVP of a voice crying, "Help, help, help." Another ghost hunter witnessed a black shadow walk through a headstone and felt cold spots in different locations. Then, there's that foreboding birch that sits in the back of the cemetery. Carved in jagged letters in its rough bark are the words, "Leave now." It's a message that makes one's skin crawl, even in broad daylight. Driving north from Bradford, Pennsylvania on Seward Avenue in the 1960s, one saw the fire-blackened sides of the Lightning House loom from the upper side of the road at the New York state line. Some said the structure was struck often by thunderbolts, causing it to catch fire numerous times. A small boy, whose family lived there briefly, had another tale to tell. One night, just after he had gone to bed, a tall, thin man appeared on his bedroom threshold. The figure had an incredibly pale complexion and was dressed in a dark suit and top hat. When he tipped his hat in greeting, his bald head glowed like lit coals. Yes, the house was inhabited by a poltergeist, the true reason for the many fires. Old Fort Niagara was originally built by the French in 1726 at the mouth of the Niagara River near present-day Youngstown, New York. After a 19-day siege, the British captured the stronghold during the French and Indian War and held it through the American Revolution. The United States occupied the fort at the outbreak of the War of 1812. Besides being an impressive historic site, Old Fort Niagara is haunted by a French officer named Henry Leclerc. He was murdered by a rival while quarreling over an Indian maiden. The killer cut off the dead officer's head, tossed it in Lake Ontario, and stuffed the rest of the body down a well. To this day, the ghost of Henry Leclerc wanders about the fort castle looking for his head. Over 7,000 men were killed at the Battle of Gettysburg that raged from July 1st through 3rd, 1863 in Adams County, Pennsylvania. With so many violent and untimely deaths, no wonder the battlefield is a hotbed of ghostly activity. One of the most haunted sites at Gettysburg is the Devil's Den, located off Crawford Avenue south of town. At the end of Hoax Ridge, the boulder-strewn hill made a perfect fort for Confederate snipers. A barefoot rebel in ragged clothes and a floppy hat still makes surprise appearances amid the rocks today. Boldly, he approaches visitors and points toward Bloody Run, After drawling, "What you're looking for is over there," he vanishes. The ghost is dressed like the Texas soldiers who captured the Devil's Den with great loss of life. Frewsburg, New York, located in the dense woods of Chautauqua County, was populated in the 1800s by many Irish immigrants. These townspeople were devout Catholics and more than a little superstitious. Among them lived a 7-year-old named Sarah who put everyone's nerves on edge. The odd, retarded girl was thought to be possessed or even a practitioner of witchcraft. One day, she got the citizens so riled they chased her from the village. The girl sought escape down Guernsey Road, with her pursuers hot on her heels. She ran, spewing gibberish, until reaching a trail that veered off to the left. In a panic, she took it, only to become trapped inside a remote graveyard surrounded by an iron fence. When she reached a tall cross at the back of the grounds, she collapsed, whimpering like an animal. The furious mob closed in and pummeled her with stones until she quit crying. Sarah was buried where she was murdered, and her ghost unleashed. Visitors can still hear her giggles as she pokes them and pulls their hair. Her phantom footsteps skip and jump and play, while moans and heavy thumps echo from the nearby forest at Guernsey Hollow Cemetery. Nurses at the community hospital in Kane, Pennsylvania swear the facility is haunted. Through a public fund campaign spearheaded by W.S. Calderwood, the original brick structure was built in 1929 and remained unchanged until 1972, when a major upgrade was completed to meet the town's needs. Located at 4372 Route 6, the hospital now goes by the name UPMC Kane. The old wing is where most ghostly activity occurs, seen frequently as a phantom gentleman dressed in a three-piece suit. He stands with his back and one raised foot braced against the wall. Also observed is a woman in a long nightgown who floats across the hall from one room to another and back again. Then there's an IV pump that turns itself on. It begins to beat feverishly even though it's not plugged in. Sitting at the nurse's station at night can be very creepy too. The on-duty RN often catches movement out of the corner of her eye as though someone rushed past. When she turns her head, there is never anyone there. Equally disturbing, nurses have had someone speak their name only to find themselves alone in the hall. And finally, there's the black shadow figure in the parking lot that causes nurses to hustle to their cars after the night shift is over. In Bradford, Pennsylvania, a foreboding brick building sat along East Main Street down by the B&O Railroad tracks. Crisscrossed with ivy that turned blood red in the fall, it served over the years as a silk mill, a skating rink, and a silicon factory. In its later capacity, it was known as Ventron, Pensilco, and then Pure Sil before falling victim to the wrecking ball. Night shift employees of Pure Sil found the place quite unsettling. Machines in every department would simultaneously crash, causing delays and curses. Cold breezes would engulf walkers in the hall too, even when doors were shut tight. Some swore they heard the cries of phantom skaters accompany these gusts. One night, the quality control room grew frigid with the air conditioner off. The technician told the invading spirit to leave in the name of Jesus Christ. When it refused to budge, the QC man fled instead. What every worker feared most, though, was being sent to the north end to fetch equipment from storage. Lurking there were rats as big as cats that showed no fear of humans. A freshman music student named Sarah committed suicide by leaping down the central stairwell of North Hall Dormitory at Mansfield Normal School, either in the World War I era or the 1930s. In one version, the girl receives a letter from the Western Front saying her lover was killed in action. Overcome with grief, she kills herself to join him in the hereafter. In another, a pregnant Sarah is jilted by the father of her child and takes her own life rather than face the shame accompanying her lost virtue. A third account even involves a Ouija board that tells the freshman to jump. Mansfield is a renowned music school, and North Hall has a practice room located on the top floor. Many students have heard melodies resonating from there only to find it empty upon entering. Adding to Sarah's legend is the testimony of a revered professor who reported seeing her spectral face staring at him from an upper story window. A freshman from Bradford, Pennsylvania had a real scare at the expense of Sarah in 1968. In those days, Mansfield was called a suitcase college because most of the students went home every weekend. One Friday, this girl found herself completely alone on the 5th floor. She was about to turn in for the night when she heard footsteps. Strangely, the footfalls stopped before every room, and the doors creaked open one by one as the intruder proceeded up the hall. She thought at first it was Lefty, a one-armed security guard, making his rounds. That was until no one knocked to check on her. Mustering up her courage, the girl finally tiptoed to her door, unlocked it, and peeked out into the corridor. There floated a misty figure in a baggy sleeved dress. Her abundant hair was straight on the top and curly down the back of her neck. She wore high-topped shoes and dark stockings. Turning, she fixed the co-ed with a peaceful, dreamy smile. Then she opened her arms and beckoned with both hands before slowly fading away from view. After that, the girl from Bradford fled campus on weekends like everyone else. The Pink House sits on the corner of West State Street and Brooklyn Avenue, a block down from the high school in Wellsville, New York. It could just as well be named the Heartbreak House because of the loveless marriage Frances Farnham was forced into by her father with E.B. Hall, the rich owner of the mansion. After his wife drowned herself in the fountain to escape her grief, Hall soon married Frances's sister, Antoinette, and they returned from their honeymoon with a newborn daughter. When the daughter also drowned in the fountain 2 years later, Antoinette thought the spirit of Frances took out her revenge on the child. Two mournful ghosts now roam the grounds, weeping endlessly. A lady barber often tells her customers an unsettling tale. At a previous job, she worked until 1 a.m. and then drove home through Allegheny, New York. One night, in a steady drizzle, she saw a tall man wearing a slicker hitchhiking along the road. Although she didn't stop to pick him up, she felt a strange presence enter her car. Glancing quickly from the corner of her eye, she saw the fellow in the raincoat slumped in the passenger seat. Her hands began shaking on the wheel, but somehow she kept control of her vehicle. Staring straight ahead, she sped down the black highway, listening to the wipers slap the raindrops from her windshield. The ghost never spoke, nor threatened her. When she drove past the limestone cemetery near the New York state line, he simply vanished. He was hitching a ride home, is all. Perhaps from where he had died in a car wreck. The name Gutelberg means Hill of the Ghouls, and the cemetery near Wales, New York lives up to that billing. Visitors have had many scary experiences in this desolate burying place. Commonly seen are a dead mother in white, black hellhounds with glowing red eyes, and a low-hanging fog that follows ghost hunters. There are also the cries of babies, crawling baby ghosts, and baby handprints left on dewy car windows. The scariest legend, though, centers around an abortion doctor who lived across the road. He deposited the infants he killed in hastily dug graves throughout the cemetery. The mothers who died during his grisly procedures were dumped in a nearby pond. The doctor's ghost began appearing in the late 1800s after he hung himself out of guilt. Gutelberg has become a dangerous place since vandals knocked down most of the tombstones. The spirits are angry, so be careful not to further desecrate their home. Injuries are known to happen here. Totten Hollow is located off South Kendall Avenue near Bradford, Pennsylvania. It's the home of a working farm, oil field relics, and a haunted house. The house sits at the end of Totten Lane, above the school bus turnaround. 3 entities have been seen there over the years. When an elderly lady occupied the residence, a playful ghost named Oscar kept her company. He didn't try to frighten anyone, he just enjoyed playing pranks. His favorite trick was moving things from their rightful place just for fun. After Grandma passed away, Oscar also moved on and hasn't been seen since. He was replaced soon after by a spirit dressed in a long black coat. During his tenure, doors would open and close, furniture would move, and the piano would play by itself. Later, the house was inhabited by a strange mother and her equally odd daughter. They were so strange that while they were alive, they scared everyone in the neighborhood. Like Edgar Allan Poe before him, William P. Robertson has been writing Gothic horror for over 40 years.
Happy Halloween, everyone. I'm looking forward to judging the Rocktober rock painting contest soon. The winner will receive a copy of my Ghost Revisited book, or a book that is age appropriate for the younger folks who enter. So tune in next time to see the next episode of Tales from the Shadows, when we'll announce the winners.